The Narcissistic Path, Part 1. Most people come to understand that the engagement of our kind consists of 3 stages: seduction, devaluation, and the discard. Whilst this is correct in essence, there is far more to the narcissistic entanglement which you ought to be aware of, as this will not only assist your understanding, but it will enable you to relate certain key occurrences and events to your own experience of being ensnared by us. This path should always be considered with regard to how you fit into the dynamic with your narcissist, and also how your particular narcissist engages with others, as the path may not be the same, dependent on the nature of the narcissist and the nature of the victim. 1. The targeting. Our victims are all targeted. They are targeted primarily for fuel, and then the provision of character traits where applicable and residual benefits where applicable. The extent and duration of this targeting depends on those 3 factors: the nature of the narcissist and the nature of the prospective victim. For instance, I, as a grater, see an attractive lady sat across from me on a train. I decide that fuel can be obtained from her as a tertiary source. She is a stranger. Since I am not angling to make her a primary or secondary source, I am not preoccupied in ascertaining her empathic, class, and special traits, but rather relying on her responding positively to my overture. I do not identify any residual benefit to obtain from her, and I may, if I engage in a conversation with her, find a character trait to acquire as my own. If I do, all well and good, but fuel is the main aim of this engagement. I note which book she is reading. It is unfamiliar to me, but I look it up on Google and find some choice information which I can use for the purpose of engagement. In the space of a few minutes, I have ascertained that there is a viable target and how to engage her. If I am looking for a prospective primary source in one of my hunting grounds, the targeting process will be of greater detail and more rigorous, as I explain in my book, Sitting Target. Once again, a target is identified and time is dedicated to deciding who this target shall be and the methodology adopted. All individuals are potential targets. Some are dispensed with us as poor targets and thus are left alone. Some are regarded as too difficult by some of our kind. Whoever we interact with, however, that person will be assessed, and then, if there is potential, action will be taken. The tertiary target has little investment from us. Secondary sources, more investment, and as you would expect, the person we intend to be our primary source receives the greatest investment in terms of time, intelligence, and energy. 2. The seducing, part of the seduction phase. The next stage is the seducing. You have not become attached to us when this happens, but fuel starts to flow as a consequence of our overtures towards you. This is where the well-known love bombing resides, as we apply our seductive wiles, allied with the intelligence we have garnered to begin seducing you. Once again, the nature of the intended victim and the nature of the narcissist impacts on the scale and extent of this seducing. Take the tertiary target that I mentioned earlier, being the lady on the train. I decided to target her, and the method of doing so in a few minutes. I catch her eye, smile, and make the relevant comment about the book she is reading. That is the totality of the seducing, short and effective. If I was looking to seduce a primary source, the seducing would be over a longer period. If I was a lesser narcissist, the nature of the seducing would be in the main keeping the beast under wraps and doing a handful of pleasant things for the intended primary source. As a greater, the whole blitzkrieg of charm, magnetism, and love bombing would be deployed. The compliments, the incessant messaging, the need to meet up repeatedly, the lavish gifts, the introduction of the coterie to reinforce my credentials, and so on. During the seduction, we are looking for those indicators which I have written about previously, which tell us that you are falling for this seducing approach of ours, so we know it is working, what to keep doing, and what to change. See Sitting Target for more on that. The golden period has commenced when the seducing starts. This golden period applies for all sources, be they primary, secondary, or tertiary. 3. The ensnarement, the second part of the seduction phase. Put it simply, this is when we know we have got you. Returning to the lady on the train, I know I have got her when she pays attention to me and smiles, thus giving me fuel. My aim here was just to get fuel. I have it, she is ensnared. I need no longer continue the seducing, but the seduction continues as we talk, and she finds what I have to say is interesting. The conversation covers various topics as the journey progresses, and I continue to receive positive fuel from her responses. With a secondary source, such as a friend, the ensnarement occurs when we determine that they refer to us as a friend, or they confirm they will do something for us, or we note that they act in our best interest in some way with a third party. With the primary source, we look for a range of indicators which confirm to us that you are now attached to us, embedded within our control, and thus the seducing has ended. The arrival of the ensnarement is the time that we reap the benefits of your fuel, character traits, and residual benefits as a reward for the energy we expended during the seducing. The golden period continues. We do not have to apply the same level of concentrated effort as we did during the seducing, but we continue to be loving, kind, funny, generous, pleasant, passionate et al. In order to consolidate our acquisition of you as our fuel source. We are secure in the knowledge that we have embedded you, and we can concentrate on enjoying your positive fuel and maintaining its flow by an adjustment here and there. The period of ensnarement depends on the nature of the fuel source, the fuel provided, and the narcissist. With the lady on the train, I get off at a station before she does, and I decide that the engagement in itself was sufficient for the provision of fuel. I may have determined that while she was attentive and pleasant, her empathic traits were low, and therefore there was no need to, for example, swap telephone numbers to maintain the connection and perhaps promote her eventually to become a secondary source by moving her from stranger to acquaintance to outer circle friend. We part ways, and she is discarded. But there has been no devaluation. There is no need. We may never see one another ever again. Taking the example of a tertiary source who we see intermittently, say somebody who works in a bar or shop, we would target, engage in the seducing, and then achieve ensnarement. We do not then engage with them for a week. There is no discard in that instance, but rather the ensnarement continues. Such a tertiary source could well remain in the ensnarement golden period for a long time. Also, you should note that a tertiary source may be targeted and determined as a viable source of negative fuel, and therefore there will be no seducing stage nor an ensnarement stage, but instead we jump several stages and proceed to devalue them for the purpose of insulting the dilatory waiter in order to gain that annoyed response from him, and thus his negative fuel. Similarly, a secondary source may also be targeted and then subjected to devaluation from the off. This might be a family member or a colleague who is effectively already in a connection with us by reason of working with us or by being related to us. They are less able to disconnect with us as a consequence of the existing nature of the relationship between us. A friend will not suffer a devaluation from the beginning, as it is necessary for us to target, seduce, and ensnare, cause that person to become our friend first of all. Naturally, the primary source cannot be devalued from the start, as such a person would instantly disengage from us, and we will lose the potential of gains after investing time and energy in the targeting of this individual. Accordingly, the start of the narcissistic path looks like this. Primary source. Extensive targeting, the seducing, the ensnarement. This is done to gain positive fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. Secondary source. Friend, family, colleague. Moderate targeting, the seducing, the ensnarement, which is done to gain positive fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. Secondary source, family or colleague. Low targeting, devaluation. This is done to gain negative fuel. Tertiary source, low targeting, the seducing, the ensnarement, done to gain positive fuel mainly, slight possibility of character traits and or residual benefits. Tertiary source, low targeting and devaluation, which is done to gain negative fuel. Thus, this covers the outset of the narcissistic relationship with the three types of source.